So I've been a Stryper fan since 1984. That's the year that the Yellow and Black Attack came out, and I stayed home from school one day that year with a cold, and I spent the whole day lying in bed with my Walkman on, listening over and over again to the Yellow and Black Attack. So I've certainly kept my eye on Stryper's career over the years. Their most recent album definitely had my attention when Even the Devil Believes was released. I checked it out, and I got to say it's two thumbs way up. What is not two thumbs way up is the review that was given to the album in the website Blabbermouth, in particular by the rock critic Dom Lawson. Now, I've never responded to a rock and roll review before, but I'm going to make an exception here because Dom's critique of Even the Devil Believes is not based upon the music, but it's based upon his own what appear to be new atheist or village atheist inclinations, which in my view are corrupting the quality of his rock journalism, and I think it's worth pointing that out and offering a brief rebuttal. So let's take a look at the review. Here it is. The rating here is a lowly 4 out of 10. Now, Dom Lawson gives the record high marks in terms of the musicianship and the quality of the music, the catchy hooks, the guitar solos. He says Michael Sweet's voice is in top form. What he doesn't like is the Christian lyrics, the fact that they're always referring to things like God and prayer. So, for example, he says, and here the first paragraph, several decades after Stryper launched, nothing quite takes the edge off a heavy metal record like constant references to God's love and the power of prayer. At least with Stryper, you know it's coming, but it's still a bit biting, it's still a bit like biting into a delicious cheeseburger and being poked in the eye at the same time. So interestingly, Dom Lawson is apparently offended and put off by the fact that Stryper is always referring to positive things like God, God's love, prayer, loving your neighbor. I guess a band like Cannibal Corpse, who have for 30 years been singing about killing, torturing, eating, and dismembering people and then bathing in their viscera, that's okay. Apparently that's good for heavy metal. But singing about God, love, and prayer, that's not cool. This is kind of strange, I gotta say, because of course there are many Christians in heavy metal music. For example, one great album that came out about 10 years ago called Hymn of a Broken Man. And Hymn of a Broken Man was recorded by a couple of the members of the group Killswitch Engage, metalcore. And it is full of theological and ethical explorations. Maybe it's not quite as in your face as Stryper, but it's certainly on the spectrum. But more to the point, I mean, who cares if you want to talk about your politics? Shadows Fall, right? They were known for having Buddhist theology. The Architects, great band, and they're known as atheists and nihilists, and they bring that into their music. Apparently that's okay for rock and roll. So why not Stryper bringing in their own theological beliefs? Okay, then Dom says this, to buy into Stryper's musical world, you also have to be able to ignore the fact that most religious thinking is instinctively reactionary, rooted in irrational fear, and is therefore entirely contrary to both the spirit of rock and roll and everything that heavy metal is supposed to be about. Okay, who decides what heavy metal is supposed to be about? Where do you go to get the official declaration on what heavy metal singers can address? Apparently it's okay, as I said, for Cannibal Corpse to talk about things like torture and necrophilia and dismembering human bodies. Why isn't it also permissible for Stryper to talk about their theological beliefs? It's okay for Shadows Fall to talk about their beliefs, for the Architects to talk about theirs. Why not Stryper? This, of course, is just purely arbitrary. But the real irony here is that Dom is actually the one who's going against the spirit of rock and roll and heavy metal by saying you have to conform to a particular expectation as to what heavy metal is and what heavy metal singers are going to address in their songs. Dom he's like the guy who says, if you really want to be a motorcycle rebel, then you have to wear all name brand Harley Davidson merchandise, because that's what it is to be a real rebel on your motorcycle. It's to conform to a narrow stereotype as to what a motorcyclist is. Well, no, actually a true rebel does what they want. If they don't want to wear a beanie helmet, if they don't want to ride a Harley Davidson, In fact, they then get a full face helmet and they ride a Kawasaki. They do what they want to do. It's the same thing with heavy metal. You don't have to sing about the macabre themes of Cannibal Corpse. You don't have to sing about the nihilism of the Architects if you don't want to. You can sing about whatever you want to. You can address social issues, you can address ethical issues, you can address political issues, you can address theological issues like Stryper does on their albums. It's all equally rock and roll because they're all pursuing what they want to do, which is the very embodiment of rock and roll, not Dom's very shallow notion of conformity to some external standard of rebellion. And then we come to the conclusion of the review, and this is where Dom really kind of shows his hand as being a new atheist. He says, ultimately, you can try to kid people that worshiping sky fairies is a shrewd pastime, but it just isn't. And as much as Stryper deserves applause for sticking to their guns, it's almost impossible to listen to Even the Devil Believes without wishing that Satan would arrive and liven things up. Metaphorically speaking, of course, I'm not insane. Oh, good for you, Dom. This is, as I said, new atheist rhetoric to refer to God, who Christians understand to be the necessarily existent agent cause that brought the universe into being and sustains it in being, the source of all goodness and purpose and moral obligation. To refer to that being as a sky fairy is just deliberately ignorant and attempting to offend. I don't know, that's not very rebellious. Actually, what Dom is simply doing is conforming to a narrow Richard Dawkins stereotype of those who are ignorant of religion and antagonistic toward it. Dom isn't being a rebel. He's not being rock and roll. He's just being Richard Dawkins. Oh, and check out what he says about the song Make Love Great Again. This is what Dom says. It's a major turnoff, even if you're a generous soul with a live and let live attitude when it comes to such matters. A song as lyrically insipid as Make Love Great Again is going to test your patience. Well, let's take a look at Make Love Great Again. Okay, so it says, I've been trying to get it right. Tears I'm crying, dark as night. These times are changing, so am I. I'm rearranging wrong from right. But hope is alive, it never died. Make love great again. Fight for it till the end. Don't let the darkness in. Make love great again. There's a culture that's building walls, just like vultures consuming all. But there's a fire that's burning bright. It won't expire even in spite. Okay, I'm going to admit that this lyrically isn't the most sophisticated song you're ever going to encounter. But I also want to underscore something really important. When I listen to this song and when I read the lyrics, this song actually harkens to mind another great song by a great heavy metal legend, and that's Ozzy Osbourne. Crazy, and that's how it goes. Millions of people living as foes. Maybe it's not too late to learn how to love and forget how to hate. Ozzy, in that song, Crazy Train, he's dealing with the kind of social polarization that is the same theme, I believe, of the song Make Love Great Again. There's a culture that's building walls, just like vultures consuming all. Oh, but there's a fire that's burning bright. It won't expire even in spite. The thing I wanted to highlight here is that Stryper is getting onto the same noble themes of lamenting social fracturing and isolation and binary oppositions that is lamented in Crazy Train. And like in Crazy Train, they want to offer a light forward. They both have a noble purpose, and they're both equally rock and roll in principle. And you may like Crazy Train better than Make Love Great Again. That's not really my concern here. My concern is simply that this song has every claim to be rock and roll as to any other song. Now, when I was a kid, there's no more sort of rock and roll heavy metal song that captured the essence of it than Twisted Sister, We're Not Gonna Take It. This was the ultimate rebellion song. And what you were rebelling against was the constrictions, the pressures placed upon you by authority, in particular by your parents. You wanted to just throw off that authority and have freedom to be who you wanted to be. That's rock and roll, right? That fits into the spirit of rock and roll for sure. You know, some years later, Twisted Sister re-recorded We're Not Gonna Take It. Dee Snider sang again, and in this case, the focus was on repurposing a song which had been originally intended as just a song against any sort of authority. And now it was a song against cancer. The thing that we're not going to take anymore is unrestrained cellular growth within the body that takes people away from their loved ones far too soon. That's rock and roll, my friends. It's still rebellion, but it's rebelling against something in this case that is very much worth rebelling against, and that is cancer. And that's beautiful. That's rock and roll growing up. What Dee Snider is doing here is he's taking rock and roll to the next level. He's taking heavy metal to the next level of rebellion. And I think Stryper is trying to do something very similar, that they are too, they're rebelling, and they are seeking their own path as they do so. And they've been doing it for more than 30 years. So for quite a while now, for close to 40 years, I guess 40 years, Stryper has been doing their own thing, right? They've been rebelling. They've been rebelling against people like Dom Lawson, who said, in order to be rock and roll, you have to sing about rebellion against parents and sing about the kinds of things that maybe Cannibal Corpse sings about, like dead bodies. And you have to maybe sing about the things that the Architects sing about, like nihilism and anger. But you can't sing about love. You can't sing about prayer. You can't sing about God. And Stryper, they're not about that. They're going to follow their own drummer, Robert Sweet, by the way, and they're going to come out with their own albums that attain the highest level of musicianship within their genre of music, but also do so in a way consistent with their Christian beliefs. And that too, my friends, is rock and roll. So yeah, Dom Lawson, you kind of missed the boat on this one, man. I'm afraid that my suggestion is this, that you take a sabbatical from doing heavy metal reviews until you kind of get clearer on what heavy metal is and the fact that Make Love Great Again and Crazy Train are in the same lyrical universe. And if you're gonna complain about Make Love Great Again, well, then you should probably stop listening to Ozzy Osbourne as well.